Phyllis, I know we're here to talk about your newly published book, Rugged Road to Recovery, about life during the post-Depression era. But I must say it's a pleasure to be on the lanai of your lovely home with this gorgeous landscape you've painted across the wall. It depicts just one of your many talents. In fact, I'm curious, did you ever take art lessons?
I've had no professional training, Lynn, but I've enjoyed art since a young child.
Your book shows you as the front cover illustrator. How in the world did that come about?
Well, no one seemed to be able to capture what I desired, and it just seemed most befitting to show our family of 7 walking that rugged road to recovery together, hand in hand. I scratched it out and the publisher accepted it exactly as I had submitted it.
Well, it certainly fits. You are a multi-talented woman.
It is basically scriptural. If we don't use our talents, we lose them. Examples can be found in Luke 19 and Matthew 25, in fact.
Yeah, that's right. I want to jump right into the information about your book, if that's okay.
Sure, Lynn. It's my pleasure to be able to tell you a little bit about my book because I believe it can be valuable to all ages beyond babyhood.
Can you tell me what prompted you to decide to go ahead and write the book?
Well, my 6 children have been encouraging me for years to write a book regarding stories I've told them about my life. They seem to conclude that I was a bit of a rascal while growing up, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit if them seeing it in writing by my own pen was part of their motive.
Well, I can understand. After becoming acquainted with you, I certainly have enjoyed your humor, your quick wit, and truthfully, your ability to just think outside of the box. A sense of humor is always one of your best assets.
Nobody wants a glum chum. Besides, it takes more energy to frown than it does to smile.
Tell me, how did you arrive at your title?
Well, my parents were married in June of 1930, only 8 months after the onset of the Great Depression of 1929. I was born in 1932 during the throes of the post-Depression era. The basic theme of my book is of my recounting as a daughter our family experiences while living on the farm during those years. Most of today's youth have no idea what life was like in the olden days. It's my desire they will read my book because there's an opportunity there for them to gain valuable insights from its perusal. One of the many benefits is thankfulness.
I agree. It's an easy read, and I think it'll hold everyone's interest from beginning to end.
Well, it's basically a compilation of varied stories that I write just as I were telling them to my children and grandchildren, with some introduction that relates to my parents and grandparents as a foundation of what ensues. The stories range from funny to sad, from joyous to tragic, and frightening to hopeful. I'm sure even most of our middle-aged people in America today can't imagine a farm family of 7 living in such a tiny 2-bedroom house with no running water, therefore no bathroom, and of course no inside toilet. We did have a wooden cook stove that Mother used in that small kitchen, and it was very uncomfortable in the summer months for her. Although it wasn't my parents' intentions to live in this tiny house, Dad's plan was to construct a space that would later be converted into his workshop. Then construction of a much larger home with all the indoor conveniences was to begin within a year, but construction was postponed. The post-Depression era changed all that and brought that about. There was even concern that we might be even losing our farm. In fact, my dad's parents had to step in and rescue us. That meant that we now had to live off 50 acres rather than 100 acres. Until my parents were again able to resume their payments to my grandparents as originally planned. It certainly had its challenges. Since Dad was a farmer, he wanted sons that could help with farm work, but instead he had 4 girls born between 1931 it was, and 1935. Wes didn't come along until 1941, 9 years after myself.
Well, I can imagine as a father it was a little challenging working with 4 daughters for quite a while. But You know, it just proves that life for responsible, hardworking people was very difficult. Tell me, with only an outside privy, it must have been a little difficult, but
Oh, yes, it was. It was a smelly little place of necessity in the summer and mighty cold in the winter. Exits were always very quick. They had to be with 7 people sharing it anyway.
well, you lived during a very challenging time, yet your book is laced with humor even as you live your life now.
You know, I guess living through the post-Depression era taught me to be an eternal optimist and to learn to roll with the punches as they came. Of course, it taught me humility and concerns for others as well. My mother's expression of deep faith was part of my learning.
Would you share a story with us from your book?
Certainly. The chapter about the horse and buggy days is an attempt to draw my readers into feeling what it was like riding in a buggy that was cold and uncomfortable, sometimes very uncomfortable even in warm weather. There was the wind to deal with, the rain, the dust. During the winter, the snow and ice was on the roads in deeply rutted places, and of course the spring thaw brought muddy roads. And the excrements of horses, whew, those were ongoing problems that really needed attention. Somebody had to clean up the streets. And you know, I have a feeling that the youth of America have no idea why the gentleman with a lady on his arm walked on the outside of the walkway. Well, the reason was that if a horse became too close to the edge, there was the chance that the lady, if she were on the outside, might get her long coat or dress splattered by urine or even worse. And then I get into talking about historical events too. One well-known pioneer had his winter home here in Fort Myers, and everybody knows that's Henry Ford. He brought about a big change in transportation. In 1903, the Ford Motor Company began building the Model T Ford car. People were very excited about having Dobbin being replaced by what they affectionately called their Tin Lizzies. It was kind of like horse and fodder versus gasoline and water.
Well, you know, you skillfully paint a picture of life in America then. Do you ever experience any regrets living through that post-Depression years?
No, Lynn, I can't say that I regret living through that time. In fact, I remain ever grateful to my noble and caring parents for overcoming seemingly unsurmountable obstacles. It remains priceless to me and my siblings. It built character in all of us that has influenced who we are today.
Well, your book certainly is a great gift for anyone old enough to read it.
Yes, it consists of 203 pages and is now available at all the major bookstores or can be purchased online.
In fact, if you look online on the page, you'll be able to discover the information on how to order and place your order and probably still get it in time for Christmas.
That's right.
Thank you, fellas. I so appreciate your time today.
I appreciate your efforts. Thank you, Lynn.
Mm-hmm.